Hey guys, welcome to Quinn's Tree Farm, coming to you straight through the power of YouTube right from Cornville, Maine. And today we're going to talk more about shearing. This morning I put a post on Great Lakes and I just asked people if they had any questions about shearing. Along with that, I'm going to share some of my thoughts and tips and tricks of shearing that I've found to be helpful. I want to start out by saying that I consider myself to maybe be an advanced beginner or even into like the intermediate level, mid-range level of shearing. I'm competent, but I'm no expert. However, I've picked up on a few things in the last 3 or 4 years of getting these into shape and listening to people talk about what works for them, and I think that I can share some of that information. Keep in mind, this is just my opinion. As always, it might be right, it might be wrong, but this is the way I do things, and you're going to figure it out on your own. So here we go. First, I have discovered, I've gotten back into wearing overalls in the fields. And the reason why I wear overalls in the field is that they're really baggy and breathable. It's kind of that balance between having long pants on and wearing shorts. And my wife gets mad at me because the grass gets all bunged up in my socks and she doesn't like washing them. So that's step one. Comfortable clothing will help a lot, but getting the long pants. So for me, I may look like a goofball, but it's purely utilitarian, and that's why I wear that, just like the hat. I've seen people ask about shearing and how to get into shearing and the beginning steps of shearing, and I'm going to share with you what I think the best way to start shearing is, how to learn how to shear for that matter. And those are hand shears. And the reason why I would recommend anyone who's new to shearing to use hand shears is twofold. One, you aren't going to make large mistakes every time that you clip a tree. If I take a knife and I go into something, I could really ruin this tree. But I do that, okay, if I make a mistake there, it's not a big deal. So we're going to start out with shears. The second reason I like shears is it makes us look at the tree and see what it's doing. Why is it growing the way it's growing, and what can we do to correct it to get rid of the stuff that's no good, for lack of a better term. Right? So one of the things I think that people don't always do right off the bat, they want to go fast, like right out of the gates, right? Teach me the ways, I got to be good, I got to be fast, I got to get all these done. And when you're a beginner, you got to slow down and you got to see what the tree looks like, how we're going to get that cone shape to where we want it, and how we can do that. And by doing this with shears, you really can help with that process. So I'm just going to go in and just continue to shear. Now, that being said, a couple tips about shearing with shears. We go in backwards, right? That would be head shearing. Well, I can't do much there, it's pointed away, so I go in backwards. And I can go in and I can grab stuff. And I can see the whole tree, and I can see where there's problems. Like right here, that looks like a problem. I can go in and I can get rid of that. So I don't need my clippers, because really the shears are going to do it. When I shear, and I talked about this in the other video, I shear from the top down and we just make circles. Now keep in mind, this is slow going. I mean, I'm going to take 2 or 3 times as long for each tree. But I think the reward as far as a beginning shearer, even if you don't go all year like this, but at least take a day and just shear. And you can look at the tree, you can see where you want to make those cuts, and it's really going to help you get the idea of what a tree should look like. Because deep down, that's the ultimate goal, is to have good looking trees, saleable trees. And we have to balance the difference between going fast and going good. One of the things that I see a lot, or I've seen before, is that it's like a Venn diagram, and it has good, fast, and cheap. and you can't have the middle, right? You could have good and fast, fast and good, good and fast, good and cheap, or fast and cheap. And you're going to sacrifice one of the others because you can't have them all. That's the way that I look at shearing trees. This isn't going to be fast, but it's going to be good and it's going to be cheap. Whereas knives are a little bit faster, but I don't know if they're going to be as good. I'm looking at my phone to see who asked the questions. Peter Grant asked about choosing the right leader and what we do when leaders aren't straight. Well, let's see, how many do we have to choose from here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right. So we need one leader, and the others have to go. Well, right out of the gates, I think it's pretty obvious that this one's gonna go. It's off the tree. It's off a old pickup leader from a couple of years ago, and we're just gonna take right care of that. That's out of here. All right. Now we look at the second set of, really the big set of leaders, and this is a crown that had a leader in the middle. And the leader was cut off here and it didn't take off, and then the tree decided it was going to work from this one. Whatever happened here was no good. So out of these, obviously we think this one's the best one. So we're going to cut these. Now when I cut them, I'm going to just leave a little bit of a crown there. And if you notice, and it might be hard to see, but I've cut all of those just above a bud set. So there are bud sets on these three crown branches that we just cut. And then if I can get in there, I might as well get rid of the old leader because it's gone and it's no good. So that's that. Now as this tree grows, this is probably, there's no ifs and buts about it. This is not going out this year. I'm going to wait. This will go out next year. So we need to make a new leader growth and at a point. Ultimately, I think the tree will be about this tall because it will grow from this point next year. And then next summer we'll get growth here and we'll cut it something in there and it'll be nice and full. So I am a stickler. I say I'm a stickler. I'm trying to get better at keeping my leaders between 10 and 12 inches. The reason why is because if they get too long, they just get too spindly and too thin and we get too tall and you can get bare spots. And if they're too short, you're not maximizing your growth and you can get short fat trees. So I balance about a foot a year, which is really, give or take, about the size of your color spot on your handle or even the length of your shears, which is telling me to cut in here. And you can't see it, but there is a node right on the back. Hopefully that node is what's going to take off, and then next year the leader growth will be that high, but we'll end up cutting it down to here and we'll have a tree. All right. And the thing about shears is you're never gonna be done. You're always gonna go back and you're gonna keep looking. But that's where I'm at. My dad always taught me to shear loose. We get rid of ingrown toenails because those are ugly. And that's a downside of knife shearing, and more specifically, I think you get a lot of them with machine shearing, hedge cutters and whatnot. And then ultimately this will go to market in 2024 if things go right. It's going to be a little bit of a fatty, but it won't be too bad. Being that I do consider myself to be an advanced beginner, I've shown you how to do it with shears. Now I'm going to go to my preferred method, the knives. Now this is a good question because, let me see, I think it was Dan Vandekamp. I'm just gonna have fun with this all day long. Vandekamp, isn't that the fish sticks guys? Vandekamp's fish sticks. Dan Vandekamp, fish stick magnet of the world, wanted to know about leaders, and he wanted to know what to do about leaders that were not straight. And he's actually spent hours trying to straighten the leaders out using bamboo sticks. Is it worth the hassle and time? I say no. Why do I say no, Dan? Here's a curvy little leader. See this right here? This was last year's leader. I have 5,000 trees in here. I've never used straighteners, and they always seem to straighten out. When was the last time you saw a fir tree that had a wonky growth in it? Is it worth the time? In fir trees, I say no, it is not. Don't waste your time. So Dan, the man, that's your question. From Robin Pellet. God, you guys have interesting names. Robin Neal. Yeah, how's that? Robin, what about 4 years old and have big gaps in them? Will this fill out in time when we trim the leader? No. No, they will not. This is why. When this grows up and there's a gap there, this area here and this area here, there were never any nodes. And all of these nodes were bud sets as things grow up. And when there are no nodes, you're not really going to have any growth. Get better. So how do we fix that? Well, this is what I'm going to do. So I'm turning this tree into a tabletop, and people may be cringing at me right now. I know that Wagner is probably using his drinking game that he told me about, where every time Quinn screws up, he has a drink. So hopefully I get you nice and relaxed tonight, John. I do appreciate your feedback, though, and hopefully someday you'll think I'm as a good tree grower as I am a firefighter. Except that all my firefighter friends are now going to tell me that I won't be able to grow trees. So anyway, so I'm going to turn this into a tabletop. And really the reason kind of is twofold. So it's been competing against the one to the north. And it just has so many gaps, big gaposis there, and I don't like it. All right. So this is two things are going to happen. Either this is going to take off. They're resilient. This isn't going to die. But I'm not getting a 12-footer out of it. And I will tell you with my 5,000 trees that what I just did here is both worth the learning experience, in my opinion, to see if this is going to take off, and to reduce this to a $25 or $30 tabletop. It's okay in my book. What's going to happen is if we don't harvest this year, the basal pruning will make a nice stem for you to put into your pot, and it's going to be a nice looking tree. So that's what I do with gaps.